Hey everybody, how you doing, Suzanne?
Hi, I'm terrific. How are you?
Good, very good. So people start coming in. Would you like to summarize what we're going over today?
Yes, absolutely. So there's been so much changing in Photoshop and Lightroom and AI and everything else over the last few weeks. It's just been all go, and we're all just trying to keep up as best we can. So I thought today it would be a good idea to go over some of Lightroom's newest goodies. We have an exciting lineup of new tools and features, and sometimes we don't get a chance to get in there and explore them. So kind of prepare to have your mind blown a little bit with some AI powered noise reduction and say goodbye to noisy photos and hello to pristine visuals. And our AI buddy is making an appearance as well with the new content removal tool in Lightroom, making
Great,
unwanted elements disappear like magic without leaving those nasty trails that our old tools tended to do. And we'll look at the new version, Process 6, and what it does as far as handling banding in some of our images. It also handles a few of the camera files a little better than before. There's some updates to the HSL panel and some
great.
neat little tips and tricks to play with that. And have you ever wished you had eyeballs to guide you through your edits? Well, the develop indicators are now your sort of virtual eyes as we're going through the develop module. So we'll be looking at that and how fun that is to work with. And we're going to be looking at new curves. So we've got curves now available in masks. And the regular tonal curve and the mask curve also has a saturation slider in it, which is very
Right.
useful. So we'll look at that. And then, if time permits, we'll look at maybe incorporating a little bit of the functionality of Lightroom Mobile into our workflow, something that I've been doing a lot more lately. And they got a few little nifty little tips and tricks in there too. So, as time permits, we will get through as much as we can. Feel free to ask questions along the way. And if we have time at the end, of course, I'll be happy to discuss anything that we've been over or any other questions you have concerning Lightroom.
Great. Sounds excellent. Very good. So, welcome everybody. Let us know where you're watching from. I see people coming in. Don't be shy now. And for those who are watching from Facebook, let me remind you to please give StreamYard permission to show your name and profile pic so that I will be able to credit you when you comment or ask questions. That's you just scroll down to the description. You'll see streamyard.com/Facebook. Click that, give permissions, jump on back. And here comes people. Someone from Northern Illinois, welcome. My friend AJ from Brooklyn, good
Hey,
to see
AJ.
you. Someone from Norway, Gear,
Wow, lucky.
nice. So yes, don't forget to give StreamYard permission. Just scroll down till you see that link, streamyard.com/Facebook. And then we got Debbie from Chicago. Thanks
Great.
for being here. Chad from Nebraska. Friend from Naples, Florida.
Great.
Great. Lots to go over today. Looks like I needed to. And Zach says, it looks like I needed to renew the permissions. Yeah, it sometimes does that. So thanks for being here, Zach. Good to see you here. So lots to go over. Shall we jump on in? I'm excited to see a lot of this
Oh,
stuff
let's jump
myself.
on in. That sounds like fun.
Okay, so hide your Chrome and I'll,
Okay, it's going.
there we go. Excellent. Okay, looks good.
Okay, ready to jump in.
Yep.
Okay, so this has this just happened to be a photo that was up on my screen this morning. It was a little AI experiment I did. I happen to love calla lilies a lot, so I was putting some prompts through Midjourney and came up with that. And I might end up doing a print of that. I ended up really
Yeah.
liking it. But anyway, so we'll just go into jump into my Lightroom here. And of course, I have the spinning beach ball of death the moment I come in. Seriously? Okay, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to kind of work a little bit backwards. So I'm going to go over some of the older new tools and then the newer new tools. So back in April, way back in April, we had introduced into Lightroom the AI noise reduction. And it's been absolutely marvelous. So a lot of times, if we're shooting high ISO or we've exposed our images a little bit more to the left than the right, and we have to bring up the exposure, oftentimes we're introducing a lot of noise. The noise reduction tools in Lightroom before were okay, but they weren't the best. And oftentimes we had to go out to third-party software to do a bit of noise reduction.
Mm-hmm.
And even with the third-party software, some of the results really weren't that good. I found in some instances they were patchy in some places, and oftentimes soften the images a little bit too much. So I was really excited when the AI noise reduction was introduced and started doing a lot of work on it. Just to let you know, with the slide that's up right now, the denoise features in Lightroom right now only work on what they call Bayer and X-Trans mosaic files, which is just a lot of hoo-ha. So I thought I'd tell you what they don't work on. It doesn't work on JPEGs, TIFFs, and the high definition images you get out of your phone. And some of the compressed RAW files, it isn't also not going to work on right now. I mean, that's due to change, but for right now, that's it. So basically, if you've got your DNGs or your RAW files, it's going to work really well.
Great.
So I just did a little bit of an experiment with a really, really bad and noisy image. And you can see and I've used this slide actually just to demonstrate noise reduction for years. So this was the one I picked out to do its first kind of test to see how it goes. So this is kind of a before, and wow, that is the after noise reduction. And you can see that it's maintained a lot of the texture and the correct colors and the details in this image while getting rid of all the noise. I used to have to apply it in various areas and not in others, and take it into Photoshop and mask it out. But I'm finding now with this software improvement in Lightroom that it's doing just an amazing job.
Yeah, nice.
So
very nice.
yeah, we'll definitely play with that. So I've got a couple of images. To be honest, it was hard for me to find terribly noisy images, and the reason is because I always expose to the right, and I don't often use high ISO. So even when I went through 200,000 images that I have and kind of sorted them in Lightroom by ISO, even the higher ISO ones really didn't have too much noise. So the ones I'm going to use for an example aren't probably my greatest hits on images, but they certainly do give an idea of what's going on. So here's an example of Milky Way I took up at the Vermilion Cliffs. So I'll just go into the develop module and do what we usually do on this and just kind of bring up the exposure, and then I'll bring up the shadows, because anytime we have a dark, noisy image, that's generally what we do. So if we zoom in, you can see that this is absolutely trashed with noise, which I was very happy to see, because then I can use it as an example. So how we can get to the new photo enhance or denoise AI, there's a couple of different ways to do it. One of those is just to go up to photo and then go down to enhance, click on that, and it will basically, what it's doing now is loading that data, and you're going to get a little bit of a preview. Okay, the default that it opens up at is 50%, or 47 in this case, but 50%. This is telling you what it looks like as it's enhanced. If you click on it, you'll get the before. If you let go, you'll get the after. So you can see especially a lot of color noise in this particular image it's getting rid of. You can move, obviously, this with just using your hand and figuring out where you want to go in the image to determine what you want to see as far as that's concerned. Or down here in the bottom right-hand corner, you can go back to your full image, click on it again, and you can come back to the zoomed in image.
Right.
You can play a lot with this denoise. Obviously, the more denoise you add, the more softening you're going to add. So as you're looking at the preview, add as much as you think you might need, and then maybe a tiny bit less, because right now we're looking at 100% view. So add as much denoise as you think you need. Don't necessarily always take it up to 100%. I find anything between 40 and 80 seems to work for most of the images. And then all you need to do is just click enhance. You'll notice down here too, there's an estimated time. And this particular image is going to take 55 seconds today. It took 30 yesterday, so I'm not quite sure why. But that kind of gives you an idea of how long it'll take.
So can I ask a question while it's doing its thing?
Yeah, please.
So I noticed that, before you went to, enhance, you had opened up your shadows to like almost like 80% or,
Yes.
plus 80. My question is, does it affect the image if you start off from just kind of at square one differently than when you open up
I don't think it does. That's a great question, because I was trying to see if there was a way or any ways to make the image a little bit different, taking it before enhance, and seeing if it affected the results, and it didn't. So what happens when you click enhance is that image of yours goes floating all the way up to Adobe's cloud. And it actually gets registered in there and analyzed in there. And then, here comes your image back. So I think it's just analyzing pure noise, whether you can see it or not.
Okay, great.
So, so that's, and as I say, I picked that and did such an extreme adjustment, obviously, so you could see what was going on. So you'll notice.
I think it did it, right? You just
ended up. Yeah, I think it did go through. And you'll notice that down here under the file name, it has made a copy of your original raw image. So it's not affecting the original raw, which is great. It's non-destructive. And it's appended the file name with enhanced.nr.
Oh, that's great.
Okay, which is great. So then that's obviously really easy to find. There's also an option to stack. So you can stack the original raw behind the enhanced version. And then a couple of people have asked me, well, if I've got a nice brand new enhanced version, couldn't I get rid of the original raw? Technically, yes, but I would never suggest that.
Right.
Space is cheap. I would keep it. But if you don't want it in your film strip, I would just hide it in a stack underneath here. But if we were to take a look at both of these, so I'll select both of them, and I'll hit C on the keyboard to compare. And we can zoom in a bit. And you can see, as I say, I picked a really tough one. So it's loading this one. So this was the before, and this is the after.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, so and on an image that isn't quite as drastic as this, it's just doing a really, really lovely job. And as I say, I did a comparison with the Topaz software, and I found the results from the Lightroom denoise even better. So let's take another example real quick.
And one note I would say is, when people are questioning, should they, get rid of this file, this photo, etc. The cost of external drives have come down so well that, I mean, you can just get, multiple external drives and be good that way.
I've got, I'm sure, and everybody does. I mean, I've got an array of drives on my desk right here, and I just keep adding to it. So if an image is absolutely unsalvageable and never keepable, I'm going to get rid of it. But generally speaking, I'm not getting rid of a lot.
Sure.
And glad I did too, because between the pandemic and one thing and another, on all the nice new tools that came out in Lightroom, especially just the masking tools from a while back, I went back and reprocessed a lot of old images, and I was very, very thankful that I hadn't thrown them away. Excellent. And with all the new tools, I was amazed at, what great work I could do with it. So that was really good.
Great.
So I'm going to show you another way that we went to photo enhance, but then also too in the develop module, like we used to do back in the old days. And I love it when the old days were a week ago. It's always fun.
You're right.
But you can get down to the denoise down here as well. But notice you also have access to your old denoise tools and sliders down here as well. So if you want to do it the old way, you can do that. or if you want to come back and do the AI again, we can take it and we can do exactly the same. Oh, I forgot to increase the exposure, but you'll get the point. So it's defaulted to 47, probably because that's what I had last time. So there is a lot of noise in this image. So I'll just go ahead and enhance that.
So do you
And
have like
actually,
images?
this might answer your question too, Drew, is the fact that I didn't do the increase in exposure first. So we'll see what comes
Sure.
up.
It says it was enhancing 2 images. Do you have like stacked images or
It
something?
better
Or
not be.
that's what it said. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't notice that. So we'll see what happens, see what pops
Yeah.
up at the end.
Yeah. Does it show us 2 previews or something?
No. It might be the second time I've done this one. Oh, you know what? There's another one for the one I did. So, yes, it probably did. It probably up did that one as well. Interesting. I didn't notice that I had that selected. Thanks for catching that. Okay, so
Maybe I
this
should have
one,
said something before.
yeah. No, yes, but I think what had happened is I had that selected, the old picture selected when I selected this one, and that was my fault.
Oh,
Yeah. So this new one now is this enhanced noise reduction. And so that's this one. And let's go into the develop module, good old basic panel. And let's just increase the exposure. And buried under there is the noise reduced image. I mean, and this was black. This was a silhouette. If we go
sure.
back to the original and do the same thing, you can see the difference in the noise there. So I'll select both of them, hit C for compare again, and you can see the difference between these. So let's zoom in.
Yeah, much nicer.
See what I mean, and that's an extreme example. So it does a really, really good job. And I've been super, super pleased with it. So
excellent.
Yep. So that is the noise reduction, appended with a new name. You can also, if you're a keyboard person, you can get to the noise reduction by hitting Control Option I on the Mac and Control Alt I on Windows. But for me, it's easier just to push the buttons.
Sure.
Okay. All right. And there's another little quickie way you can do it too, is you can, I've never done it, so we'll do it live here. Supposedly, you can just right click on the image and go down to enhance. If you see it somewhere, yeah, there we go. Right click on the image and go to enhance. So 3 different ways to get there. Whatever.
Oh, I just remembered something that I've asked the Lightroom team if they could make the change, and they gave me some explanation that I'm not sure it was really valid or what, but I like right clicking a lot in Lightroom, and the one thing that I've always been surprised that they don't have as an option is when you right click when you're on the regular view of something, you don't have the option to rename the photo. So you have to go up to library, rename photo. I'm like, why not have that? That seems like
no, that does make sense. Yes, I'm a right clicker too. And in fact, one of the things I tell my students in my Lightroom classes, if they have questions about how to do something, I said, right clicking is the answer to 90% of Lightroom, But yes, finding the rename function in Lightroom is a fun one. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, so just as a point of workflow, Adobe does reckon, and I've tested it out, and there are a couple of times that I think that might be good advice, is to apply any noise reduction first. Okay, so when you're getting ready to process your image, if you can see that it has noise and you're going to be bringing up the shadows, before you do anything in the develop module, go ahead and apply the denoise and then start working from there. It looks like the images are much better quality doing that.
Great.
Yeah. And another thing we can do, this is kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but we now have a grain tool in with our texture and clarity and all of that. And sometimes, especially like on an image like this, when I was playing with it yesterday, even if it can get a little bit soft. If you apply a little bit of grain to that, it kind of puts a little bit of reality texture back into the image. So that's another good thing to do with the new grain tool that's come out too. So if you find out some textures are getting a little bit too soft, grain is going to be there to help you out.
Great.
Okay, cool. All right, so we also have some new tools and new things going on. So I'll show you those. So we have a new tool now that's in the develop module. The tool is basically the same, but you'll notice we now have eyeballs. Okay, so for those of you who work a lot in Photoshop, this is going to look really familiar. So on our basic panel and all our various panels that I have collapsed here, we have an eyeball showing up. So that tells me when I'm looking at this that I have applied effects. I have applied detail, I have applied HSL, and I've applied obviously something in the basic panel. So I don't have to go and I'm in solo mode when I'm in this. So all my folders and everything are collapsed to make it easier to see, especially if you're working on a laptop. But this makes it really easy to see what I've adjusted, so I can go into that adjustment really quick without having to, figure out which one I went into. So the eyeballs are there. Plus now we can turn on and off the eyeballs to see what that will make a difference. So if I've applied HSL, I can see before and after how it's going to look with it or without it. So that's a nice new little feature that's going to be very, very useful. Also, too, you'll notice that we've got dots. So we've got dots and eyeballs. So the dots indicate that you've done something up here with the tools as well. So one dot underneath this will say you've done something. Basically, you've opened up the panel and you've worked on an adjustment. So you're going to have a dot there. This is indicating right here under the crop tool that you've done a crop on this. This is indicating you've done some spot removal work. We didn't have any red eye reduction, so there's no dot there. And in this image, we've also created a mask, so we have a dot there. So those indicators are really useful to see what's going on. So keep an eye on the eyeballs, okay?
That's right.
So in our masking tools, we've got some fun stuff, new fun stuff too. So hopefully all of you have had a chance to work with the new masking in, I guess we can still call it new masking in Lightroom. It's absolutely, and I swear I'd never say this, but it's a game changer. And the masking is just getting better and better and better. So we can mask, obviously, skies and subjects and objects and people and parts of people and clothes and lips. And, we can really get down to it. So these have all been just fantastic additions to Lightroom. So let's run through those really quick and we'll just show you a few things. So let's just open this kind of random image. So in our develop module, obviously, if we go into our masking tool, we have our sky mask, our subject mask, our background, and also to all the tools that we used to play with, our linear gradients, radial gradients, range masking. We also have this people tab, and right now, and miracle that it is at Delicate Art, there's no people there. So if there were any people there, we could also have the option of making a mask there too. So if we just go into the sky, for instance, it creates this new mask. If I hover over it, you can see where the mask has been created. I could name this mask if I wanted to. To be honest with you, I'm so lazy that I don't. And pretty much if I look at a mask, I can see what it's masking. You can see the preview up here. But if you rename the masks, now, as of the latest update, the name of the mask is going to appear in your history, which is kind of nice because before it just said mask. So now it will be Delicate Art mask or sky mask or whatever you decide to name it. So that's kind of cool. So with this, this particular mask, I can see that it's kind of gone over the edge quite a bit. There's a lot of ways to refine masks here in Lightroom. And since this isn't really a masking class, but I can't just leave it like this. So I'm going to go ahead and revise this mask a little bit. So what I want to do is subtract from the mask, because I want to get rid of this little bit down here. I could probably do it with a brush tool, but I think that's a bit heavy-handed. So I'll just go in with a linear gradient, and I'll just pull a linear gradient up here and feather it quite a bit. And can you see how now it's revealing the mountains there and making that what I call a transition zone a little bit more realistic? So with that, I can go ahead and darken down the sky. and it's not having a bad effect right on the edge of those mountains, and it's fading in just a little bit nicer. So I can play with that, which is
Nice.
really cool. I can also come in here and create another mask. And then this time I could do an object, what I call an object mask. So I can just, hold on, this always happens. I'm in objects, new objects. There we go. Oh God, that scared me for a minute. Anytime you're doing something live, you just know something is going to go wrong. So all I'm going to do now is just basically just draw over. You notice I'm not even being very good about it. Just draw over this area here. So that's telling Lightroom, see how it masked that so beautifully?
Yeah.
That's what I want to affect, okay? So then I can come over here to the exposure slider, and I can increase or decrease the exposure on that, maybe bring up the contrast on that, maybe bring up the temperature a little bit. Ooh, that looks kind of cool. And maybe we could add a little bit of texture to it as well. But before and after, which is your backslash key, which is under your delete key, that's our before, and that's our after, with just doing a little bit of masking. So that's really handy. I'm going to reset this. So just going to hit reset back to normal here. The advantage, by the way, of using reset, you'll notice over here in my history panel, here's where I originally edited the images. And we did our add sky, and here's our mask update, which would say something descriptive if I change my mask name. And it comes all the way up to the last adjustment we did, which is there. If I hit reset, it resets it back to the original import. But the best part about it, I don't lose any of that history. So I can go back to that history anytime. So if you're playing around with learning new tools and doing a few experiments on developing, hitting that reset button will give you the opportunity to go back in time if you want to, or just start fresh again from the beginning. So that's really a useful little tool. So now I've reset. I'm actually going to use the same image as another example of something nice and new that we've got. And that is AI everything now, AI powered presets. So I'm not a big preset user. I make my own presets quite a bit, mostly sharpening or some effects that I want to have. But I found that this was actually quite useful. So in the presets now, we have what they call adaptive presets. So where I could go into any image, whether it be a people image or a landscape image or whatever else, I can create all my masks based on beards and eyes and clothes and objects and all that stuff and work on them individually. What I can also do is come over here to an adaptive preset, and no matter what image I apply this to, it's automatically creating the masks for me on the fly, so I don't have to do that separately.
That's great.
Explain, yeah. So if I want to come up to the sky, for instance, and if I hover over this, you can see the effect in the image. Before, when we were doing presets, you could only see the effect up here in the navigator panel. But now when you make your own presets with this new technique, you can come over here and you can actually see it right here on your image, which just makes it really easy. So without even having to make a mask for the sky, I can just say, blue sky, and there it is. And then I could come over here and just give the foreground a little bit of a pop, or maybe give it a warm pop. There we go. So just in 2 keystrokes, without creating any manual masks, I have made those changes, which is really kind of cool.
And real quick, I just wanted to answer someone's question.
Yeah.
So there was someone just saying, "This is all great info. Thank you. I'm watching at a time that I can't take notes. Will I be able to watch the video again later?" Yes. So the recording will be on the Digital Art Drew YouTube channel, and I will be posting that to the top of the various Facebook groups, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. So yes, always available to watch afterwards. And then Ron has a question for Suzanne.
Yeah.
When using AI, does Adobe take ownership of the images as mentioned in the video? Always asking that question.
I'm going to say the answer is no, to the best of my knowledge. Okay. I personally wouldn't really worry about that. It's really just going up to their cloud to have it analyze, noise and bring it back down again. That's, it's going to be up to you how you feel about that. But
Right.
technically, the answer is no.
Great.
Okay. Continuing on.
Continue, please.
Okay, and I'm going to hit reset on that again because I'm going to use this for something else a little later on. So let's go into portrait. So you can see how some of these adaptive presets actually work on the portraits. So we have some with, here we go, just a minute. Here we go, adaptive portraits. What I like particularly for this one is some of this sort of a gritty little look you can get. So I can hover over this and you can see I can texture his hair. I can darken his beard, darken the eyebrows. He doesn't have any teeth showing, so I can do that. Notice how if I enhance the eyes, it takes that sclera up a little bit. So all of the things that we would normally do in, portrait retouching is kind of here for us already. And with, it's the same with any preset. It's just a starting point. So if you like an effect, you can increase the effect in the develop module, or you could decrease the effect, but it's a really good way to start. So let's just play around with this one. So we'll darken his beard. I don't think enhancing his clothes is really going to do very much, but let's give him a bit of texture in his hair. That looks good. So let's go gritty portrait. Ooh, I like that one. Okay. And then notice up here with your presets, you also have an amount slider. So I can say, well, I like that, but maybe not quite so much, and take the amount slider down. Or I can say, ooh, I really like that, and let's just crank that up. And the other nice thing about the new, when you create presets now with the new version, you can also choose to have an amount slider on your own presets that you create. So you can go ahead and make those adjustments there. So that looks pretty cool. And so if I was to do a before and after with a / key, so that was my portrait before. That's I'll take off the little dots there. That's my portrait after. Looks pretty cool. So he wanted to go ahead.
So I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So on the preview, my preview is set to when I hit the Y key, it shows the before on the left and the after on the right.
That's another option. So if I hit the Y key, I got before and after. Yep. But I prefer it on the fly while I'm doing it, because I can hit the / key and take it off. Hit it, take it off.
Okay, the / key you use.
Yeah, so I can see how it's affecting it as I'm making adjustments very quickly. And
AJ has a question.
Mm-hmm.
So you created all these presets? They aren't there already?
Oh, no. Sorry. Oh, good question. No, these adaptive presets come with the latest version of Lightroom. These are yours. These are presents. But what I was saying is, if you create your own, you also have the ability to have the preview on the full image, plus you have the amount slider in previews and presets that you do create. But no, all these adaptive presets, so you've got adaptive portrait, adaptive sky, you also have adaptive subject, and those are all included in the latest version of Lightroom.
Nice.
Kind of cool. All right. And as I say, if you're doing a bunch of images, so for people who do a lot of portrait work, you can just bop and apply all these presets very quickly without having to create the masks all the time, which is kind of cool. Great. So let's just take another one, for instance, and we'll do this a different way. I could come in here and do what we just did with our adaptive presets, or I can come over here the way we do it now. So now it sees a people, okay? So if I hover over that, you can see it sees the whole thing. So I'm now telling it, okay, here's the people. This is the guy I want. I can have it mask the entire person. So if I just want to bring up the exposure maybe on him, or if I want to do the opposite of that and take the exposure up and down on the background, I would just go ahead and do the entire person. But if there's just one little thing or two little things that I want to do, I can just target facial skin, body skin, eyebrows, that eye sclera. We've got to come up with a better word than sclera. But anyway, iris and pupils, his yips, his
I love
hair.
how thorough it is, right?
Yeah,
So,
facial hair. And now in the new edition, we have clothes, which is really great.
right.
And before we had the clothes option, I would just use the object selection tool and, draw a very quick sketch around a t-shirt or a pair of pants or something like that. And it did a really good job. But now we have the clothes option. So I
Okay.
can just go ahead and mask that, for instance, just mask the clothes, and then I could come down here and start playing around with, hue, saturation, and luminance, and start changing the colors of things.
Yeah, nice.
Changing the hue, oh, there we go. That's awesome. Changing the tint of just that. So then I could come back. I'm going to create a new mask because now I decide his beard just doesn't match anymore. We've got to do something about his beard. So we'll go back to the select people again. And then I can come down here, and there's his hair, facial hair. There we go. So I'm going to create a mask just for his facial hair. And I could come in here and make his beard a little bit darker, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Looks good. So let's say I wanted to do something with the background now. I can go into this. I've already made the mask. Oh, we didn't do the mask for the whole person. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead, and we could create the mask for the whole person and then invert that mask. But let's see, we've got another option here, which is select background. So let's see if it just does a good job on that. So if I hover over it, you will see, yeah, did a pretty darn good job on that already. So there's a couple of different ways you could create that, but select background is working in this case. So I can make the background darker. I can make the background brighter.
Nice.
That masking is pretty darn good.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's pretty awesome, really.
Yeah, and especially if you got something like this, and this happens on a backdrop all the time where you've got a little bit of unevenness. As I say, you can get back there and do that. So we've affected just his shirt, just his beard, just the background, and we can go in there and do a lot more. So that's those. So that's various different ways of doing some of the new adaptive presets. And so you can see, if this is giving you kind of what you were looking for, this is a great place to start. Or you can get much more granular and refined and create your own masks over here. The other thing the masks will do, of course, is it will select separate people in a group shot. So if you have a group shot of people and say select subjects, it'll select all of them, but then you can work on them all individually. So you can just, change the hair on one, change the dress on another, soften the skin on the women, give the men wrinkles, so have fun with that. So these new tools are just absolutely fabulous.
And I wanted to just let you know, someone in the Facebook group said, so very informative. Thank you.
Great.
So,
Good. It's funny, because we work with these all the time. And, as soon as a new edition comes out, I mean, I'm in it and I'm working on it and I'm experimenting with it. And I forget that not everybody actually has the time or inclination to work on all the new stuff as it comes out. So it's kind of nice to just go back and have a little bit of a refresher and see what new tools have been. And then they've been coming out thick and fast lately. So keeping up with it, even for me, has been difficult. So I'm glad you guys are finding some interest on this. So that's really good.
well, as me as the Adobe community expert, keeping track of Adobe Express changes, and now
Yeah,
there's
I
Adobe
know. I
Illustrator.
know. Yeah, it's between AI, Adobe Express, Lightroom, Photoshop, and Chat
And my friend
GPT.
John says, sadly, I'm already spoiled to these new features.
Yes, I know. We used to think this program was good before. It's getting, it's getting so much better now. When I first started, and I'm primarily a landscape photographer, although I photograph just about anything that jumps in front of my camera. Um, but when I very first started with Lightroom, right when it first started, because all I was looking for was a digital asset management system. I just needed
Mhm.
something to manage my images. So, I started in Lightroom. I would maybe do, 10, 15% in camera raw, and then everything else went over to Photoshop, and then back to Lightroom, of course. But over the years, less and less and less and less am I going to Photoshop. And now, unless I'm doing something super creative, like, digital art or some, composite work or, something like that, I can do 99% of the work that I do professionally entirely within the Lightroom ecosystem.
Right.
And it's just fabulous. So I'm thrilled with that.
Excellent.
Okay, so let's see what other little goodies have we got? Let's see. Oh, I was going to show you. So remember our good old friend Delicate Arch. So we'll go back to Delicate Arch again. So we also have another option down here, is that we've always had the tone curve, which is great. Okay. So some people are comfortable using a tone curve, some not. But my suggestion would be to start playing with it a little bit, because it is a very useful tool for fine tuning your highlights and your shadows and the tonality of the image. So basically here, just taking the middle, I can make an image brighter, I can make an image darker overall. And you'll notice that with the histogram up in the top right-hand corner, you can see what it's doing. It's, changing all the values equally. I can come over here into more of a point curve, what they call a point curve, and I can set a point right on the shadows, and I can set a point at the midtones. And then you'll notice that all I'm doing is just affecting the area between the darkest shadows and here. So a point curve is useful to get rid of that. Just double click and take it away. We also have a curve for our 3 channels, our red channel, our green channel, and our blue channel. This is probably not the best example for doing color channels, but let's say on the red channel, I can decide I want more red in an image, or I can decide I want more cyan in an image.
Right.
So that's working with the tone curves right there, which is very handy, and there it is. But let's go back to here again. And let's just do what I call just a standard S curve. So we bring up the shadows and we come down here and we take down we bring up the highlights, and we take down the shadows. But notice now what we've got underneath here, something called refined saturation. Because when you increase contrast, whether you increase it in the basic panel or anywhere else, it will automatically add saturation. And sometimes that's not a good thing. In Photoshop, we used to counteract that with blend modes. But now here in Lightroom, if you've added a curve and it's added too much saturation, now you have the slider and you can slide that saturation back. So all you're doing is affecting contrast and not bringing any saturation into it. So that's a nice new little development.
Oh, nice.
Now, the other thing we can do, and we've done this already, so let's just go into the objects, since that worked so well before. And we'll just do a nice little selection. And what I love about doing all these selections is it's rough and it doesn't care. So what it's doing, it's finding edges, of course, underneath what you've selected, and it's created a mask. Super easy. But now with this mask, you'll notice that I have a curve inside my masking tools, which we didn't have before. So all the masks, I can actually come in here and make curves. So if I come in here with this mask, let's go into that red channel again. And let's say we wanted to make the rocks a little redder. Okay. I'm going to do it too much, but just so you can see what we're doing. So I have full control over the color on that. Then I could also come in here and do a select sky again, like we did before. But instead of using the basic panel tools up here, I can come down to the tone curve and say I just want to bring the brights down just a little. So I can work inside my masks now in the tone curve. And also, again, you have this refined saturation if it's ended up making too many changes. So lots and lots of different ways to work with images.
We always enjoy more options, right?
Yeah, ever more options, and each one does something just a little bit different. So if you start to work with them a lot, you'll say, okay, well, this tool is going to be better for this particular use, or that tool is going to be better for that. And a combination sometimes of the two can work really well as well. So next on my list is the new healing tools, AI powered, of course. So we used to have, or we still have, the spot removal tool and the clone stamp tool. And in the clone stamp tool, we have, if I just open it up here, we have the option of, hold on. I'm just having a little bit of trouble here. Hold on just a minute. Huh. All right. Well, maybe we won't go there right now because I wasn't even going to talk about that. So let's just look at this image here. And this is the new spot removal tool. And what used to happen before is you would paint over a spot in your composition that you wanted to get rid of, and Lightroom would automatically sample from another area of the image. Most of the time, it did a pretty good job. But what had happened is in the old program, if I selected this, it might go ahead and find something what it thinks is similar, and it would select this area to copy from. And what happened then is you got a lot of repeating patterns, which is a sure giveaway that you've done a lot of cloning and healing in your image. So in this case, with the new tool, I can just kind of paint over this image. So instead of it sampling from another area, it's just doing an AI, basically content aware, which is really good. So it's a lot more realistic. So I can come over here and get rid of that, get rid of that. Let's get rid of the rock while we're at it.
So it's like the remove tool. Right?
It's kind of like the remove tool, yes. So as I say, it's not sampling another area of your image that it used to do. It's actually creating, the texture and the difference in the image right underneath it, and does such a much, much better job. I always found that the spot removal tool for anything other than dust spots was pretty heavy-handed, and it was really easy to see what was going on. So this is a tiny little thing, that nobody really pays attention to, but this is a really powerful little tool, which is great. So, okay, so a couple of other things that we've got.
Quick question: if you were then to click on the spot healing, that's just the old way of doing it with the kind of loop.
Yes, that's the old way of doing it. Yes. So if I come over here and select, it's gonna sample from another area of the image. Yeah. Right. And then I was going to come into this clone tool, and for some reason, I'm not going to dwell on it.
It's not showing a feature.
It's not showing. Yeah, it's not doing what I want it to do. But as I say, I'm not going to worry about it.
I'm curious though. What was the feature though?
Oh, I was just going to explain the difference between cloning and healing, which I guess I can do without showing it to you. Because usually when you pick up the clone tool, it gives you the option: do you want to clone or do you want to heal? Cloning takes pixels from one area and replaces them with pixels in the other area. What heal will do is it takes pixels from one area and then blends them with the other area. So heal is usually much better for something like skin, texture, that sort of thing. Clone is better if you just want to cut it out, and there's no real right or wrong between when to use clone and heal, but just understand that they remove things slightly differently. So if it has texture, I would normally use heal. If it's just something I need to get rid of, I will use the clone tool. So that's just that. Nice. Okay, so more little goodies that are hiding away. Down in the calibration tool down here, and I don't know if many of you use the calibration. I'm using it more and more. When Lightroom first came out back in the day, that's color grading. Sorry. When Lightroom came out back in the day, I really only used this as if I was having trouble with different cameras that I was working with different people that were, colors were slightly different. Nikon reds, Canon reds, Nikon blues, Canon blues, and that sort of thing. But what I have found now, working in the calibration, is that I can use some of these channels here. So I can increase or decrease saturation in the red channel that will affect the way my green channels look. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that's a whole nother hour in and of itself that maybe we can do again in the future. But this is definitely something worth looking at. But the reason I opened it here today is because now with the newest version of Lightroom, we now have version 6. Version 6 is the current version. And it's just, new and improved algorithms just to make your pictures look better. Mostly what this does, it takes care of banding. So if you have an image that, maybe an 8-bit image that you've processed quite a bit, you may see some visual banding, especially in skies. You won't see it now so much because you're working in version 6. But if you had taken an image that you worked with previously and brought it in, switched it to version 6, you'll probably see that banding disappear. So that's what version 6 is. And for any of you who use Olympus cameras, for some reason, this version 6 likes you, and it does a really nice job, specifically on some of the Olympus ORF files specifically, which is kind of cool. Okay, so that's
Great.
version 6. It's not very exciting, but it's doing good work for you.
It's functional.
Yeah. You may notice too that my calibration is further up the list than yours is. Yours is probably way down at the bottom. Because I use calibration right next to the HSL panel, I moved that, and you can do that by right-clicking on your folders over here, and see where it says Customize Develop Panel. You can come in here, and you can change the order of your adjustments here.
I do that too, because I figure like with tone curve, isn't like, where's the tone curve should be right underneath. I think you moved yours around too.
I did. So for me, this is I just adjusted everything here based on the way that I use it. So basic panel, tone curve, HSL, and calibration are the ones that I use probably the most.
Right. So you did it similar to mine, and I was trying to see like the original, but you had already changed them too. So.
Yeah, you can tell what I don't use very much. I don't use color grading very much. Yeah. But it's nice to have that option, So here we are. Right. So we have the option of changing those things around, but I have to remember to tell people that because they get really confused when they see that. Okay, let's jump into the HSL panel. So we've got some new things going on in there. HSL, for those of you who don't know, hue, saturation, and luminance, okay, which is all great. I mean, there's all sorts of ways we can go over there. So this is a good example. Pretend that says luminance. But hue is taking colors all the way around the color wheel. So we can take reds to yellows to greens and all the way around. Saturation is taking the amount of color, so very weak color to very strong color. And then L, which is luminance, you can think of it as brightness value, taking it from the darkest to the lightest. So that's all we're working on there with hue, saturation, and luminance. But let me give you an example of how this is working. Let me make this even bigger.
I was going to say zoom in a little bit. Be nice.
Huh?
I was going to ask you to zoom in, but
yes. Well, there we go. Zoomed in. Okay, so hue, saturation, and luminance. So up here in the top left-hand corner, we've had this forever. It's still here, but just in case you forget or it's unloved, you have what they call a targeted adjustment tool, and I use this all the time. Anytime there's a targeted adjustment tool, whether it be in the tone curve or here or wherever, I use it. Because that basically what that's doing, it's reading the pixels underneath that little crosshair there. So in every color, there's a little bit of red, green, and blue. If you notice, let's say I'm hovering over here on the red. Look at the histogram in that top right-hand corner. And you can see underneath, it'll show you the colors that it's showing. So the red is showing 80, green is showing 55.3, and the blue is showing 43, even though I've got this on what I would consider pure red. So if I just slide the red slider back and forth here, I'm not really affecting everything that's in that color. So with the target adjustment tool, it knows those combinations. So I can slide that adjustment down or slide that adjustment up, and it's going to give me an accurate representation. See, it's bringing the orange with it, bringing the red with it. I don't have to guess. That's kind of cool. Right. So I'll double click on the word hue and take that back again. And we'll just pop over to saturation and show you what's new. Okay, because hue saturation has been there forever. But what's new in the latest version is if you hit your Alt, in fact, I'm going to do a blog post about everything the Alt key can do in Lightroom. But this is a new one. So if you hit your Alt or Option key, okay, while you're playing around with the sliders, you can, as you click on it, see what happens. Everything else, except the colors that you are selected with the red, have gone black and white. So it's a really good visual to see what you're actually selecting. So let's go back here and let's select the blues. I'll do it without the Alt Option key first. So you can see I'm wiggling around, and sometimes it's hard to see on an image, from one corner to the next, what you're affecting. So this way, if I hit the Alt Option key, I can see exactly what in that particular image that I'm affecting.
Yeah,
Let's
cool.
take it to a real life example here. Okay, wish I was there right now. Okay,
Yeah, pretty.
so
Where is that exactly?
that's Arizona, and that's Havasupai. Yeah.
Nice.
Um, so I'm going to hit the Alter Option key, and I'm going to be on the reds now. Now that tells me there's no red in that image, and it's maybe a little bit up in that top right, left-hand corner. So me adjusting the red slider isn't going to do a whole heck of a lot there. But if I go into the orange slider, now we can see where those oranges are. And now we can pop those up. I can now go into the greens, and I can hit the Alter Option slider, and it's there. And I can go into the yellows, same thing. Notice where the yellows are. And now I've got a visual on those as well. So that's a really, really handy little indicator when you're working in the HSL panel to see what colors you're affecting and all over the image. Because sometimes you'll be looking at the tree and not realizing that you're changing colors in various other places of the image. So this just gives you a really, really good visual.
Nice.
Okay. So that's basically everything relatively new in Lightroom. And I see we're getting close to the top of the hour, so I can do Q&A, or I can show you a few little tricks for incorporating Lightroom and Lightroom Mobile together. So that's entirely up to you.
I think there's just one question right now, but
Okay.
friend AJ asks, is there a new tool that does what the polarizing filter does in the Nick collection?
Ah,
So
not
are you familiar?
really, not really. And they probably wouldn't call it that, but you can recreate that polarizing effect by using your contrast, selecting the sky, using your contrast, changing your color hue and all that. So you'll end up in the same place, but there's not something, and if you found something, let's say you were working on an image and you found some combination of tools that worked really nicely for you that did what the effect that you were looking for, save that as a preset. So you would just come over to presets and hit the plus right here. Decide which of the effects, all, some, or none, that you wanted to include. Then I would also come down here and make sure you've clicked on support the amount slider. Okay, so you would
I think you're freezing.
adjust your amount slider accordingly. So you'd have a lot of control over that.
Yeah, I think you froze a little bit, but
Oh, I did?
yeah. Um, yeah, like near the end, missed the part about the amount slider.
Oh, okay. So if you're creating that preset with the create preset interface, there's a little toggle in the bottom left-hand corner that says include amount. So
Okay,
if you click that on, then you have an amount slider included in your preset. So you could dial that down or dial it up again for future use for polarization.
great. And then Ron asks, any way to blur a background in Lightroom Classic?
Absolutely. Let's see if we can find a good background. Hold on just a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, and I do that quite often, to be honest with you. So let's go into our masking. I'm just trying to find one that has maybe a good example here. Hold on just a sec. I think if you guys see Delicate Arch one more time. Hold on.
Yeah, I was gonna say you might have to go to a regular
Come
folder.
back to a completely different. I'm just grabbing at straws here. Although that's probably not the best example. But yes, all you would do is just select your image. Let's just do it on this one. I mean, it's not actually going to do it. But you just select your image. You would come in here and you could either go select background.
You're freezing again. You there, Susan?
I'm here.
Yeah, you're freezing a bit, which is interesting because we've gone all the way to almost an hour, and then all of
Yeah.
a sudden it started happening.
Well, I'm in Arizona and I'm far from freezing. So so hopefully I'm back again. So
Okay, yeah,
if you make a mask, you can always invert it. And then once that mask is inverted and you've got the background, then I come down to the details panel and I reduce the clarity and actually do what I call negative dehaze. And that blurs out the background nicely.
great. Let's see. Someone's asking any portrait presets in Lightroom that can be used on black skin, please.
Ah, I would say that they would probably should work on all skin types, probably some better than others, but that's an excellent question, and that's something I'll actually play around with.
Great.
Yeah. So I don't. So if you have some, play around, and please send me an email and let me know how that works out. But
Yeah,
I will do that too. Yeah. Excellent.
great.
I would hope
Yeah.
so.
So yeah. So no other questions. Should I let people know where they can find you online?
Absolutely.
Great. Yeah, that was excellent. Thank you so much. Very
Oh, my pleasure.
informative, as someone said. And so yes. So you can find Suzanne on her website at Suzanne Mathia Photography. That's how you say your last name,
Yeah.
correct? SuzanneMathiaPhotography.com. You can also find her on Facebook at Suzanne.Mathia, Facebook.com/Suzanne.Mathia, as well as what I love that title, the Facebook.com, the Lightroom Whisperer. So you follow that page. And I was going to say, please come follow and like my digital artist Andrew Kavanagh page on Facebook. That's where I will be promoting the different live events, my tutorials, contests in my Facebook groups, and general information, as well as my digital art. So, and please do subscribe for more digital art, Photoshop, and Lightroom focused live streams and tutorials on my YouTube at youtube.com/digitalartdrew. And that is also where the recording is going to be coming from. So I will share the recording to this event at the top of the Facebook groups, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. But that is going to be on the Digital Art Drew YouTube channel. And if you haven't already, come join my groups, the Photoshop and Lightroom group, facebook.com/groups, Photoshop Lightroom group. We are about to pass 350,000 members. So that's quite nice.
Yeah.
And my AI art and digital art group just passed 10,000. So come join facebook.com/groups AI art digital art. So keep things balanced here, the Photoshop and Lightroom worlds and the AI art and digital art worlds, keep them going on Facebook. And we got some comments coming in. So yeah. AJ says, thank you.
My pleasure.
Ron says, great session. Facebook user says, thanks. My friend John says, thanks, guys.
Oh, hi, John.
Yeah, it was really great. Thank you so much.
Great. And if anybody wants to get a hold of me, reach out via social media. Email me, or my phone number is available there as well. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to help.
Right. So once again, you can find her at the Lightroom Whisperer page on Facebook, facebook.com, as well as Suzanne.Mathia on Facebook and SuzanneMathiaPhotography.com. Great. And a couple more comments coming in as well. Thanks, guys. Thank you for sharing this. Yep, my pleasure. So yes, in general, keep your eye on the top of the groups. Top featured posts is where we have the promos for the live events, any contest, any news, any special events coming up. So keep your eye on those groups. And we will be having more wonderful people presenting. I think Terry White is going to be presenting in the feature, the Adobe Evangelist. And for sure, we'll have Susan back again.
Yeah, that would be great. Now I've got a whole lot more I could go over. I'd enjoy that. Yep.
And, maybe even sometime we can have you do like a Photoshop one to keep things balanced.
There we go.
Or Photoshop and Lightroom,
Yep.
Two worlds.
They're two worlds. They live together nicely. They play well.
And Debbie also says, thank you. Appreciate your time. So thanks, everybody. And thanks so much, Suzanne.
My pleasure.
Have a good one, everybody.